Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And it is great to have some of my nearest and dearest friends back with me again. This is my 5,000 subscriber celebration. And as those of you who've watched my numbers realize I actually hit the 5,000 number a month ago, but I already had shows scheduled out. I still have shows scheduled out through the end of September, with one exception. And so this was the soonest that I could get it in after I hit the 5,000 mark. So thank you all of you. And the reason that I asked for this particular panel was because these are people who helped me get here. These are people who got me started. So thank you to all of you. And let's go ahead and go around and just say hello to everyone. Purple, say hello and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Hello. I've got a small channel. I just do casual chats on Wednesday afternoons. I realized years ago it's my place in the community to promote channels that will just completely outgrow me within a year or so.
Okay, Kitty.
Hi. I'm Kitty. I haven't been as active online lately, mostly on TikTok, where, Kitty the Atheist, and I'm just having fun and vibing. But I do love coming into these chats, and everybody here on this panel I absolutely adore, and I'm so glad that we can celebrate this milestone with Gigi together. Like I'm stoked.
Thanks. Jen.
I'm Jen Polymathic. I haven't done anything for ages, but when I do, it's usually science related. But yeah, and I'm so chuffed to be here. Granny's adorable, and she's a great friend, and yeah, it's amazing. I'm so glad you got to 5,000.
Thank you. Jenny.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jenny, and I don't have a channel. I don't really do anything. I just kind of hang out and talk smart.
Okay, Claire.
Oh, I'm just so happy to be here and to celebrate with you. I have a small channel, kind of I guess you'd call it commentary smash up, true crime, politics, what I call library chats, one-on-one discussions, just about anything. It's just all about the discussions, which is what I love about Granny's channel. And I'm so happy I met her. And I'm just thrilled for you. Just paneling with just about everybody here, either during the holidays, or one-on-one. I think we've all done stuff together. And just to celebrate all of their channels. And to see Granny get the 5 was like amazing. Like it's just wonderful. I can't wait for 10. Like it's just around the corner. I'm sure he's going to be 10 soon.
I really wanted Shannon Q on here too, because Shannon was the first one to say that I would get here. And when I did my 1,000 subscriber celebration, Shannon Q was on. She said, "Oh, it'll just in no time you'll be to 5,000." I was like, "Yeah, right. Like I'm ever going to make 5,000." But unfortunately, Shannon was busy today and couldn't make it.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful to have this support, isn't it? I mean, we support everybody, all the small channels, even the larger channels, just to see people. YouTube's big for everyone, and just to hear everybody out having the conversations is amazing.
And a newer friend, Niddy. Welcome, Niddy.
Hey. Yeah, I've been watching you since you helped Vice Rhino out with stuff on the canonicity. And I'm like, all right, I need to find out if she's got a channel, and lo and behold.
Why don't call you Niddy?
That's my name, you silly. I'm making dinner, so my wife will be home and I'll be in my usual setup in a minute. But yeah, I love your stuff. Exposing apologists, always a good time. I get that shopping for clothes in the soap store. I still I've been
Actually,
watching that.
Robin gave me that one. It was funny because I texted Robin because I knew Robin was good at that kind of thing. And I said, I'm looking for an example of somebody looking for something in the wrong place, like going to the auto parts store for cheese, but I want something funny. And Robin said, "You're kidding, right? I've been waiting to use this forever. You have to use soap." And Robin sent me a link to soap. And so, yeah, that's where I got that from.
And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Niddy. I have my channel's Nidamos, the Animated Atheist, and I do open rooms, critiques on apologetics, and my own reflections of my own reflections of deconverting and what that's been like, and how my family's doing. So yeah.
Oh, it's nice to meet you.
Before we get started into just general chit chat, I do have an announcement to make that I'm going to make at the end as well. And that is that today, your friendly neighborhood atheist is doing a fundraiser. It starts at 4 o'clock. It runs for 3 or 4 hours. He's having guests on for 15 minutes at a time. It's 2 guests at a time, and it rotates through for 15 minutes. And as soon as the show ends, and we have to end right on time, because as soon as we're done, I'm heading straight over to his show, and I've only got 5 minutes before I'm on with him. And we're doing it's a fundraiser for atheist. Gosh, now I can't remember the exact name of the group, but it's a student scholarship group trying to raise scholarships for secular students. There's so many scholarships out there for religious students. This is a scholarship for secular students. So the first, there's a number of links in the description. The first one is to his show. So when this show is over, please, everyone head over to your friendly neighborhood atheist, and I will be on over there as well. Okay, and with that, it's just open mic night for everyone to just talk about whatever's on their mind.
Oh, that could be
That's dangerous.
Yeah, I'm looking at you,
Too
Kitty.
early in
I'm
the morning
looking
to
at
say
you.
that.
It is. Right, Jen? That could have been very dangerous, depending,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. Oh, listen.
I love you. I love your cuffs though, Kitty. They look awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, so this okay,
Yeah.
so there's a story for this.
I assumed there would be.
Okay, so this is actually a secret wrist cuff / spicy friendship bracelet, because it can be used as a collar, as a bracelet, or it can be actually put in a configuration that will bind the wrists for spicy fun time play. This was actually given to me by a mutual on TikTok. He is a local tailor, like he's here in Orlando, and he does costumes for corn stars and Quinky people and cosplayers and stuff. So like
Wow.
instead of latex, like stretch vinyl. And like, I mean, he's got a whole line of the vinyl frontier for Star Trek, like Quinky
I knew it had
cosplay.
to be Star Trek. It just had to, didn't it?
So I actually made a non-binary bucket hat in non-binary colors. I made a video about it, and I made a secret ally hat for him as well, because he's cishet, but he's surrounded by alphabet mafia people. And his like lead designer and employee is Jam, and they are amazing. And they came out with like a non-binary collection, and so I wanted to like do something nice for them. So like some of my content was actually like making the hat and everything like that. And I had been wanting to get one of these, but I haven't had the funds, because like when it rains, it pours. And someone donated one saying, pick somebody, you know, they bought it and they're like, you pick somebody to give to. And I was the one that he picked. So I got my cuff, and there are different colors that he has. And normally black is for like the D types. But like gothic heart, like I'm a Hot Topic girl at heart, and black is classy and goes with everything. But I will be getting a green one and probably a purple one too, because of the groups of people, because like they're color coded. Like different people gravitate towards different ones. So I will be getting more.
If they're color coded, you could actually get them in whichever flag suited you.
I mean, yeah, there's solid colors. Like there's green, purple, there's oxblood. So it's like green is typically, the people that go with green are your like nerdy, like tabletop, like gamer types. The purple are typically like the LGBTs.
All right, I've
like,
got to order a green one then.
Pink is like the littles or the femboys. Purple, I think, is also like the brats. A lot of the brats like purple. So yeah, like it's fun, and it's a whole thing. But and it's made out of leather, and he doesn't actually make them. He has somebody that he works with, and he out in I think it's Portland, Oregon. But basically it's House of Wolfram. So you can either wear it as a collar, or you put it in the configuration for a bracelet, or you flip it around this way and it makes a binding infinity knot. So imagine your wrists being in that. So I
Yeah.
can't demonstrate that on myself because I don't have extra arms. But yeah, fun times. And I told you there was a story with this, and saying talk about anything can be dangerous when I'm on this channel.
Well, 2 more
Glad I
days,
asked.
and we'll be opening the Halloween season for you.
I am so excited. I am so excited that spooky season's. Oh, and it's stamped leather. Like that's the House of Wolfram logo, and it looks so nice.
Oh.
All right. Somebody else talk before I continue rambling.
Yeah, now I'm gonna ask. He's called his company the House of Wolfram. Is that a reference to Angel?
I don't know. I will have to ask Michael and
Yeah.
see if he knows, because you're right. Like shit.
Yeah, because Wolfram and the Heart is from Angel, so it could be a
Yeah.
Buffy Angel reference. And
It could.
Mark Caesar says, ask Chat GPT for some extra arms.
Right?
Yes.
So, Claire, are you covering any major trials right now?
Yeah. There's like 13 different cases I'm covering. It's getting to be a bit.
Oh, wow.
But the only live stream, like I live stream the discussions, not the court cases right now, unless they're like really. I think the last one I did was the Murdaugh trial. I tried doing the Stotch and the Vallow trial, but they were just so horrendous. I actually, for the first time, I bowed out before they were done. Like I actually did a video on the verdicts because I just could not. It just
there's
got to
some
be too
things you
much.
just can't watch. They're just.
I just couldn't in the media. You know, I know it sounds a little hypocritical because I do talk about these trials and I do go over the information and I do the same thing that the mass media does. You know, they put out articles, whatever. But the way that they were just blowing up things that really have nothing to do with the legal side of it or the court proceedings, and I really felt like it was getting messy and people were like interfering with stuff, and you know, it was so triggering too. But I am actually hypocritically going to be live streaming the sentencing of Lori Vallow on Monday. Because most of the people who follow me had contacted me in DMs and they just want a place to talk about it and get it out while it's going on. So I said, okay, I mean, it is the sentencing, justice has been done. So it has a little bit lighter note to it than actually what happened.
Claire, I have to ask, what got you into that as far as your interest in it?
In my interest in it, well, I'm not a lawyer, but I've always been fascinated with the law. And like when I tell people, I'm an avid reader. Like I gobble up like all kinds of books and anything. I read legal briefs like daily over coffee in the morning of interesting cases.
Oh,
I love the
wow.
language.
That's
I love
interesting.
the it started years and years and years ago when I became retired against my will, shall we say. You know, at what I felt too young and I needed to be busy, and I just delved into it and I love it. I love the language. I love the process. I've been fascinated by the changes. I don't know about you, Granny, over the last 20 years on what has happened in the way we handle court cases and what goes on, and how, you know, with mass media and things being actually out online now, and the transparency of it. It's just a thing. I went from dealing with medical jargon every day into switching it over to legal once I was out of business. And I just really enjoy it, Jenny. And from there, it just grew to a group of friends that I would talk to regularly during the week about cases. And then eventually, as I started my channel, which was other friends who just wanted to have good conversations out there, we always had these great conversations in private about anything and everything. And my channel developed from that, and then they came on me after that. And then after a few months of being out here on YouTube, they started pushing to bring our conversations online for that too. And I'm very small, but I do handle it a little bit differently. I can be biased sometimes, like I was just
Aren't
recently
we
with
all?
yeah, but
Mm.
with the Mallory Beach settlement especially, I was quite biased about Parker's, and I had to admit it during it, because usually I just present the facts and I try to keep people from getting into the media sensationalism. Like, I don't care who the suspected killer is. I don't care who he talked to in kindergarten, you know? I don't think that's relevant to the case.
I don't
I
think there's a problem with being biased as long as you're honest with your audience about that at the beginning.
I think if
Mhm.
you see my stuff, I actually am. I'm like honest to a fault. I get a lot of heat for it. Like I admit I can be one of the biggest a-holes in the world, but I'll admit it. I own it. Um, it's my opinion, and I think there's room for everybody, out here for it. But thanks for I feel terrible talking about myself so much like this. This
No,
is
it's
Granny's thing.
it's
But
interesting.
I will tell
There's
you, I almost peed myself when Granny joined me for Murdoch. Like, she came up and I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled, because I'm constantly saying, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm like, ask the lawyer. Granny's here, like, ask the lawyer. Because it was great. But yeah.
well, there's certainly an appetite out in the world for crime interest and the legal system. I mean, there's what, 2 or 3 different crime channels on cable and things,
Mhm.
There,
and
yeah,
and they're reviewing stuff from 30, 40 years ago, and people just eat it up.
Yeah, I can't believe, like, Netflix is just coming out with Depp versus Heard, which has already been settled and done for quite a while now. That was my first one, actually, that I did the live trial as it was going on. And my friend Mandy and I had followed the information on that trial for 2 years before. And I
Someone's
was
got an
out.
echo.
Something on in the background?
I'm not sure, but one person has something on in the background that's causing an echo.
better?
Go ahead and talk again, Claire. Let's see if we.
Me? Okay.
Okay, I think it's gone now.
Okay. I hear like a static, but that's about it. I didn't hear the echo.
Yeah, there was a brief static, but before there was an echo, and the echo is gone now.
Yeah. Well,
Go ahead, Claire.
Oh no, I feel
You're done?
terrible taking up so much time. I don't want to keep
Okay.
talking about myself, but
Yeah.
I get passionate about it, because they are, like Kitty, I have certain topics that I want to talk about a lot out here. And one of them is changing the laws for consent legally, the way legislation writes them from state to state. And also in regards to the statute of limitations, we've seen great changes
Mhm.
over the years.
Yeah.
And also for how we actually designate what assault or are, because recently in covering the Carroll versus Trump case, that became very evident in New York about how specific they are, that it's not R unless it is actually a P that violates, and it has to be seen. Like, okay, what? Like, what about everybody else who could be violated? Like, no.
Claire,
Like,
did you
the way
did
it's
you
written.
see in Italy the whole it was less than 10 seconds or whatever, so it
Oh yes,
doesn't
'cause
count?
it's not. Yes, it doesn't count because it wasn't in there long enough. You see, you know what I'm talking about, Kitty, right? It's so frustrating. And here in America, from state to state, court to court, county to county, it's different in how you can press
Yeah.
your charges and what can happen. And I think that needs to be settled up. Besides the Me Too issue, which started out as I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for this, but started out as a great organization, but turned into just a man bashing, too far extreme, not even looking at the real deal thing. The way they wrote that legislation and signed it that says women, and left out whole sections of the population that this happens to, was an abomination. And yet I
Yeah,
support some of the changes that happened. I support the longer keeping of the privacy of our DNA samples and keeping them for as long as the victim may want to press charges, giving them extra time. I support all of that happened. And the
Yeah.
mandatory testing.
I'd like to bring up an issue that I saw in real life
Mhm.
and was too young to understand how serious it was. I was 18 at the time. I was a waitress at a truck stop. And I heard the manager, who was 19, make a bet with the dishwasher, who was also 18, that he could goose the waitress that we knew was coming in a few minutes. And one said, if you do it, she's going to slap you. And the other one said, no, she'll just get mad and walk away. That was the bet. How would she react? And I was appalled.
Oh,
And so I stayed as much by the back door where employees enter and exit as much as possible, and was able to catch her before she went in, and he was able to get his hands on her and told her what they had bet and what they were going to do. Well, in the next few seconds, he walked in and grabbed her, pulled down her pants, and did it. And then she slapped him, and that was the end of it, because the manager was in on it. The four of us were the only ones working there. I was too young to understand that workplace sexual assault is something that you can report to the police and is a crime. I did not know that. And this guy was a high school wrestler, and he was very good at it. That's why he was able to pin her so fast and do this. And it was all over in a matter of about 3 seconds. There was nothing she could do about it. And so saying, oh, if it's less than 10 seconds, it doesn't count. That's like free sexual assault for 10 seconds. And I've seen it happen. It does happen.
yeah. And
Sorry.
that's and then you get pressured not to say anything about these things. They say, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I just put my hand on your ass or I touched your shoulder." I was like, no, like that's my free space of
He
autonomy
penetrated
there.
her. He
Right.
penetrated her digitally.
Yeah. That's assault. It's,
Oh,
that,
yeah,
that's,
there was no
yeah.
question. I mean, he raped her, but I did not know that at the time.
I
Mhm.
mean,
But
I've had experiences where, I had bosses that, would make comments about me, which, like, honestly, that was the least of it. One job I just straight up walked out because I wore a skirt that day, and he, tried to reach under my skirt, and I'm like, nope, I don't fucking need this job. And I walked out, but I didn't report it because I didn't think about that,
Exactly.
and then I was working at a Burger King. And not only was the supervisor trying to get in my pants, but the actual general manager as well. The supervisor, tried the whole, well, you have to because you're under me line. And I shot him down. And the manager actually cornered me in the break room and tried to kiss me. And that one I handled a little bit differently. Not I didn't go to the police because, again, I wasn't thinking along those lines, but I did scare him because I went and I acted like nothing had happened because, like, I was still a little shook. But when I got home, I started like simmering and like raging. And where I lived at the time had a very robust like public records online. Like, you could go to a clerk of the court's website and pull it up. So I pulled up his name, and I got like where he lived, that he had a traffic ticket, that he was had an upcoming court date, and like the judge's name and the courthouse that he's supposed to be in. I had all that information, and I went in the next time I had a shift, and he tried to back me up, and I rattled all of that off, and I was like, look, I know you have a wife and kids. I will show up at your doorstep and tell her everything. And he didn't like touch me again. But then he's like, oh, you hacked stuff. I'm like, no, it's all public records, dude. And he's like, you probably have my social security number. It's like, no, that wasn't on there. But I do have all of this information that is public record. And I will go to your house and tell your wife that you are trying to, get into the pants of one of your employees. And he didn't corner me again, and I ended up leaving like a week or two later. But still, like, it was a very like empowering moment for me, like where I kind of felt like a little bit like powerful in that moment. But it would have been better off, like, I was like 18 at the time. I would have been better off going to the cops. Like, that would have been the smarter thing to do, especially since the guy was a retired Marine sniper. So, you know, like, picking fights with people that are obviously not concerned about breaking the law, maybe not the best of ideas. But when you're 18, you're invincible.
Granny, your incident, that would have I'm giving away your age here. That would have taken place in the like early to mid 70s.
It was the late 70s. It was either
Late.
1978 or 79.
Do you think
Yeah.
that anybody would even take it seriously back then? It was so different.
No, they wouldn't have. Yeah,
Yeah.
if I had reported that, I don't know that anyone would have taken it seriously.
Right. Especially if you just reported the conversation before it happened that they were planning to do it, they would be like, oh, you're making too big a deal. It's nothing. It's like, you know, it's just how we talk. It's just what we do. That happens all the time.
Boys
Those-
will be boys.
Yeah, those microaggressions that actually are cultivating the climate that allows these things to happen. Yeah, it's actually horrendous. The
This
level of
comment-
acceptance in violating anyone's rights in that manner is just too much.
This comment can be taken one of two ways, and I'm not sure which way Crazy Cat meant it. Crazy Cat might be saying, you know, that someone shouldn't be getting 20 years for, you know, something that they did in 10 seconds. And if that's what you mean, then I couldn't disagree with you more. I mean, I can take a revolver and shoot someone and kill someone in 10 seconds. And if you don't think that deserves 20 years in prison,
I don't.
The
I
other
don't
way to
think,
take it is, you know,
But that
being
might not be
young,
what-
dumb,
Everything in
and not
context,
thinking of the
isn't it?
consequences.
no.
I
they
don't know
mean it
them
that
to
way.
be that. I don't think they mean it that way. I don't know them to be
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
way. I think they mean, you know, wouldn't that be an eye opener? Like, you know, hey, they did that. It's wrong. What the
Okay.
I mean,
I
they
Crazy
should
Cat-
get
I
it.
think the
Exactly.
point there
Cat
would
has
be like,
clarified. He's saying they should get the 20 years. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it was
Exactly.
just poorly phrased.
I think there are some aspects where you shouldn't though, because for example, an 18-year-old first time maybe drinking and then getting behind a car, and if they kill somebody, I'm not sure
Right.
that person deserves 20 years, even though it's something freaking stupid, and they definitely deserve punishment for it. But I wouldn't necessarily say they deserve 20 years for it.
Mhm.
Why do we feel that somebody who takes a gun and murders somebody should get 20 years to life, but we take somebody who chooses to drink and get drunk and chooses to get in their car and runs down a family of 5 gets 3 to 5 years?
Yeah.
I had this happen. A friend of mine's father.
I agree
did
with you.
this.
That is too little for what they happen, but I also can take the aspect that that there is a degree of social responsibility that we have to take for things like drunk driving and where it kills people, because we do not educate young people enough on the dangers of drink driving, of the dangers of alcohol in and of itself, and young people just gravitate to it. It is a social
It is.
pariah, and
Yeah.
that is a problem, and that is an education system, and that is a societal issue. Guns
Right.
can also be a societal issue, but somebody picking up a gun and shooting somebody is not the same type of societal issue as drink driving is.
And
Well, like-
legally, here it's the difference between intent, okay, and actually pre-thought. And
Yeah.
well, you're right. The problem we have a lot in the legal system is the level of accountability in what is actually reasonable and not. But the difference in the vehicle manslaughter, which is what they would actually charge that with instead of murder, because it's not like they aimed at them and ran them over. It is a course of
If
events.
they did do that,
right?
it would be murder, though.
It
Well,
would. Like, you know, we've had murder by vehicle before with in a divorce case where someone actually ran over their spouse to
Or
settle the deal.
Charlottesville.
Yeah.
It is a separate
exactly.
society problem that
Mhm.
we really don't take alcohol in general seriously enough, and we certainly don't
No.
teach it.
Now,
No, we
I
should.
like the way my parents broached the topic of alcohol, because their whole thing was, look, we don't want you drinking. However, we know that when you're outside of this house, like it is a distinct possibility that you are going to get access to alcohol. So
Yeah.
if you do drink, call us. We will come and get you. You
Mhm.
will not be in trouble.
Mhm.
And that was like the whole thing. They also kind of demystified alcohol because we were allowed, like from the time we were like teenagers, like 15, 16, we were allowed one lightly poured alcoholic beverage at like special events. So like 4th of July, New Year's, Christmas, where it kind of took a little bit of the mystique away from it, where it was less taboo, where it's like, yeah, okay, it is what it is, And
I did the same thing with my daughters. From the time that they were teenagers, it was like, if you want to drink, because it's Christmas or it's something happening,
Mhm.
not just randomly, but if you want to drink, you can have a drink. And neither of them drink now. They're like, we don't like alcohol. We're not,
I will be
we don't need it.
37 this year. I did all of my drinking from the ages of like 16 to 21. Like once I actually reached legal drinking age, I was done with it. Like if I have one drink a year, like I'll go years with nothing. Although I will
Yeah, I'm
say
the
the
same as you,
2020
Kitty.
election, I drank a whole ass
I am
bottle of
now.
wine that night because I was scared. But,
There is footage of me on YouTube that proves that that's not completely true. But now, I mean, especially since Rob with his liver failure and everything, I do not drink anymore. I just seeing that is just like no. That I'm not even going anywhere near that. I've got enough medical problems without the ones. So, but yeah, I basically don't drink at all. It's like you don't need to. You can be social without it.
I have to stand for myself and how I feel. I think that the society is completely wrong in how it deals with vehicular manslaughter. Um, People in this day and age know what alcohol does to you,
Yeah.
and they know you shouldn't take a vehicle out when you're drunk, and they
Yeah.
still do it. There's people with 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 various drunk driving arrests. They know what the deal is, but they get off.
No, I agree with you in general, but when the point originally was an 18-year-old or somebody who's just young, just old enough to get their license, this is one of those dumb things where in most countries the age of starting to drive and the age of starting to drink are exactly the same frickin' age, which is ridiculous. Because you're giving somebody something incredibly irresponsible at the same time as something they're supposed to be very responsible about at an age where you don't know that difference between responsibility and irresponsibility. So it's a societal issue.
I mean, also, like, the brain doesn't fully develop until your early to mid 20s. Like, you still, like, impulse control and a few other things that we attribute to adulting. Teenagers,
Don't
they don't
develop
have that
until about
on lock yet.
25.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your lack of impulse control continues till about 25. So that the aspect that we give people at 18 or 16 control over these things that requires good impulse control and then don't teach them those skills required, because getting a driver's license is pretty easy in most countries, and it is one of the most dangerous weapons you can hand anyone, especially at 16 or 18. It's like drink even without drink. I mean, I know what I drove like when I was a teenager.
Exactly. Like when you're learning to drive, there's many accidents can happen in regards to that, drinking or otherwise. But I understand with the losses that happen in the families and all with that. In my family, we did lose someone at quite a young age, crossing the street and hit by a drunk driver. It can be devastating for the families, but I also understand it's a failure on society's part that it actually occurs, that people actually get in cars and drink like that. It's a lack of education. It's a lack of our punishment system all along. So I can also understand not wanting to severely ruin the life of an 18-year-old forever for a mistake that we haven't done enough to prevent in the first place.
Well,
Like,
in the
This
U.S.,
is an
there is an
interesting.
age difference,
Yeah.
so it's not quite what Aussie Jenny was saying, because most people in the U.S. have been driving for 3 to 5 years before they're old enough to buy booze.
Right.
true.
Right.
And
Because
now we
Yeah,
have
because you
good
got 21 and
education.
16, don't you? So,
Mhm.
but
right.
in
You can get
Australia,
driver's license at
it's
16. But you
18
can't
and
drink till
18.
21.
So,
We can't drink till 21.
Yeah, in some states,
Yeah.
even have alcohol awareness. It's part of the education of these licensings for vehicles and licenses.
yes, it's
and
not
things
here.
like
It
that.
should be.
Yeah,
I'm
some of them
interested.
do, not all of them, though. Yeah.
Hey, I'm interested in this comment because I've never heard this before. People in the UK are huffing nitrous oxide on the roads.
hmm
Let's see. We don't actually have anyone from the UK on the panel today, but have any of you
Wow.
heard this before? I've never heard of this.
Actually, the huffing nitrous oxide was a fad that went through the U.S. 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
seriously.
hitting whippets has been along for a lot longer than that. We did it in the
Yeah,
70s.
but it became like a thing on TikTok like 4 years ago that all the kids were doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's quite dangerous. Like you can lose consciousness. I can't believe anybody be behind a vehicle doing that, like because it comes on like it's so quick. Like wow, that's
In a
crazy.
vehicular situation, of course, it's those of us who have been on it, in the dentist chair, so
You're basically just starving your brain of oxygen by doing it.
Exactly.
So it's you're only getting a high sensation because you could get the same high sensation by breathing in a whole heap of CO2 as well. So it'd be a lot cheaper.
What's dangerous with nitrous is of course the being drunk on nitrous and driving. But
because it's blood permeable.
Even if you're sitting at home and you're doing it, you can deoxygenate yourself. And by nitrous, if you have less than, I think it is 45% oxygen on intake, you will die.
Yeah.
Now if you're doing whippets, there's no way for you to measure that.
And the NOx within the lungs can break the permeable barriers within the lungs, so it actually gets directly into your blood system. So it goes directly in, so you end up with the NOx actually in your blood directly, not just from a breathing. Yeah, it's very quick on its uptake.
So it suffocates your cells too?
Yeah, pretty much. It's not good for you. You're not supposed to breathe it. Well, going back to cars thing, the other thing about cars and young people is that because of the way our secondhand car markets work, most young people end up with older cars which are overpowered for the people who are learning to drive. I've always wondered why we don't have a similar thing. I don't know if you have it in the UK, but in the US. In Australia, when people get a motorcycle license, they have to start off with a lower powered motorcycle, and then after they've had it for a while, they can get a more powerful motorcycle. I think cars should be the same. Young drivers shouldn't be allowed to drive something above a certain amount of power. No V8s or V6s for people who've got their license for the first couple of years. They should have little 4 cylinders, a lot less power, a lot less danger from that. But because the way our car markets are, those older cars which have more power are cheaper, so they can afford to get them, and they want them because all their mates have them. And that's a contributing factor to this, because it's an older car, it's not as safe, it's got more power, so it's dangerous. And if you don't have the reaction times for those speeds, which you won't, as a new driver and as a younger person who doesn't have any impulse control, you're more likely to have an accident anyway, regardless of alcohol.
My 4-cylinder car will go to about 125.
Yeah, I can't see the power of the engine having that big of a difference. But it is a problem anyway in the US, just because what you're going to see most are SUVs. And a lot of that's because people have this perception that SUVs are safer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're more deadly for everybody else.
Yeah.
My daughter's going to learn how to drive in a go-kart that goes 0 to 60 in about 20 minutes.
I mean, that works.
Hopefully as electric cars become more prevalent, and the fact that we're moving towards the little street mover ones, the cars that can fit about 2 or 3 people at most. I mean, I know that's going to take a long time to happen in the US, because US people like their big cars, but in other countries it's happening now. Hopefully as that happens, we're going to find a lot less powerful cars with less high-speed acceleration, better stopping times, better safety, that will help reduce accidents, and especially as we get more computers which have collision detection in them and actually apply the brakes for people, that'll be a better thing as we go. I'd like to see an encouragement for people to drive around mini golf carts around towns rather than actual cars.
We
Because
have those in my
I
town.
mean,
Yeah.
in cities where it's been done, it works really, really well. And, you know, it's cheaper, it's better for the environment, and then you can have really good public transport for getting everywhere else, and it solves all these problems. But everyone wants to have their own thing, and they want it now.
It's for Mark Caesar did a nice parallel in the chat there, that the other problem that we were talking about in regards to assault, that the education process itself in regards to driving of motor vehicles or the use of alcohol or in sex education could prevent like a lot of this really horrific attitude out there and go against like everybody just trying to figure things out on their own. But there's so much pushback against it, and that's what I don't understand. Why so much pushback on common sense conversations on what should and should not be done? I mean, you don't become active just because you know what you can do. You know, you don't become an alcoholic just knowing the dangers of alcohol, you know. But then when it comes to sex education, they think we're all going to be heathens if we learn what our bodies can do and what we should and should not do or violate the space of other people. Like, right? Like, you know, I'm just going to, you know, automatically just become, you know, this horrible person because I know about it. It's ridiculous. Like, what are they so afraid of? And when you're that afraid of information, that really makes me question where you're coming from. Where are you coming from? You're not coming from a very honest place.
Irrelevant noob. I have to take your point up. You're not particularly correct in your statement. If you are building a car and then you're going to make it go faster than it was originally designed for, you need bigger brakes to compensate for the extra speed that the car can accomplish. However, the deceleration does not have anything to do with the engine. Deceleration has to do with the brakes. Now, if you're referring to the amount of energy that has to go into braking equaling the amount of speed that you got, yes, that coefficient would have to be higher too. But a deceleration isn't from the engine.
Regenerative braking helps with that too, though, because you're capturing energy from the wheels as you're braking. That actually helps to brake it faster.
Yeah, that was all before my career. We didn't have that kind of fancy stuff when I worked on cars.
Yeah.
Well, back to the previous conversation about icebreaker of why no sex education. I think it's like a hang up of puritanical culture in the U.S. and also that Christians don't read their Old Testament because it's just rife with that stuff, right?
Yeah.
They would be forced to see more of it than they'd ever want in letting their kids read it, right? Like, check it out, Genesis 19.
Possible hot
Women
take,
born in
but
the
I will
Bible
die
and
on this
sex
hill.
Yeah.
Is that the reason they don't want better sex ed, especially like talk about like consent and such, is because they want to keep their victim pool innocent.
You know, there might be something to that. The language of that is harsh, but I understand where it's coming from because I'm actually on that hill with you. But I would say it a little bit differently, that they don't want the information out there because they don't want the education of choice. They don't want the education of body autonomy. They don't want the education of like willingness in, you know, the people that are with you should actually want to be with you and not because they don't have any other choice or you've developed the culture to where they feel less than and that they have to go with whatever you say. And I'm really with you on that, Kitty, because
I find it really gross.
Sinead, may she rest in power.
Yes,
I've said for years she was owed an apology because she ripped up that picture of the Pope to bring attention to
what
the
was going on
in the church
which
years
was
before
still,
anyone was talking about it.
which we're still dealing with, and a lot of the changes that have have come about for the statute of limitations and how charges are pressed in adult victims of child assault being able to press many, many years later. We're seeing that unfold now, right, in the courts, Granny, every day. Cases that are 23 years old, 20 years old. I've been covering quite a few of them, and rightly so. I'm glad to see those changes, but it's horrific how long it came. And it's also horrific how they're still dealing with it. You know, there was a college just now that's actually petitioned the Supreme Court that said that they knew, and I'm not going to mention names here, but they knew about a coach for 20 years, this college, they had reports on him doing assault and all. They've been paying victims' claims for over 10 years on it because they know it was wrong. They got, there was a trial, everything. These people are coming through with civil suits. But they went to the Supreme Court to say enough is enough. We've already paid enough money. There's 230 other victims, but we don't really want to have to pay them. And then I'm like, what? Like, what?
Well, the
Wait
Catholic
a minute.
Church is doing the Catholic Church is doing the same thing, except they're doing it through bankruptcy.
Yeah, they're trying.
I've read stories of one diocese after another declaring bankruptcy so they don't have to pay the claims.
And I really think that should have played out differently in the courts, because when they first brought this forward, if they had brought the chain of command that in the Catholic Church, there is a chain of command all the way to the top where the money is, right? None of them are actually autonomous, none of these churches. So for them to say just because the priest was in this church, that church's money is the only one that can be accessed is ridiculous. That needed better lawyering going against the Vatican, because there is a hierarchy there that exists and everybody knows about it, and the money's there too for it. So don't be pulling that.
Isn't part of the problem the way that?
Well, and they're
isn't part of the problem the way that Vatican City is set up, though? Because I mean, Vatican City is technically its own country, so it makes its own laws, so it's a law unto itself.
Exactly. And I say those survivors better start suing the country, because that's where the money is. Forget about the priest that did it. Let's go after the hierarchy that actually caused the system. Go against the culture that they committed it, because they had the knowledge, and they have all the books are open now. They had to actually provide it. They knew all along. They moved these people specifically to keep it quiet.
Yeah, so they should be going after the people who actually reassign them.
Yeah. Yes, our favorite subject, right?
I think it's about time you and I need to bring back sexy Bible readings.
I would love to bring back sexy. I thought you were going to say we were going to do another masturbation instruction video, but
we should do that, but it'll get taken down again. So
hey, I love to read out loud. You give it to me, I'll read it. As sexy as you want.
We should so do that.
Oh, I would love to do it. I love working with you.
It'd make a good little set of short clips, actually.
Yeah, I guess I should have said that on YouTube, that I would do anything you want. Like, now you could hold me to it. But yeah, I would.
let's keep in mind in this discussion that it's certainly not just the Catholic Church. I mean, look at the list that the Southern Baptist Convention just came out with of 700-page manual on all the church leaders that have been committing sexual assault on children.
Exactly.
None of them are drag queens.
Well, that's true too.
I think we all just use the Vatican because it's the largest and it's been going on the longest that we know. And for me, the legal battles in regards to it, the way the laws changed in New York, I'm here on the East Coast, in regards to it for the adult survivors and all, and I'm watching it like play out. So for me, it becomes like the one I always use as the example. There's just so much about it out there. Even the one with the back, that was horrible, but it didn't get as much airplay. It's almost like, and this is a flaw of us all in society, we get tired of hearing about stuff, so we just turn a deaf ear to the horrific nature of this
we
stuff.
effectively tune out.
Yeah, we tune out. I mean, in just like,
well, you kind of have to. I think it's a self-preservation thing, because you get too much of that coming in, and it's too much. It's too depressing. It's too
what choice do we have? You tune out, or you become annoying AF, and you're just like, sable rattling at everybody about it for like forever, and you feel so useless because our words aren't doing anything. I always advocate, get locally involved and use your vote and whatever. But some of these issues, you feel
people don't like to vote. It's an odd thing. I mean, even in Australia, where we've got compulsory voting for most things, where you don't have compulsory voting, like local elections and there are a couple of other things where we don't have to vote for them. Our show outs are show out for those votes are as bad as they are for you guys.
Yeah, I think
But
or like
everything.
for those
People, if
countries
you
that have
don't
it
have to do
voluntary,
it,
it's like
people won't.
50%. Like in
Yeah.
everywhere. It's only 50%. And I'm like, well, why? I think it's because people
Yeah.
don't see the results right away of their vote long term, like especially in your local elections and things like that, because you don't get, unfortunately, in our day and age, the immediate
Coverage.
gratification. You don't see the result of your vote
never have.
immediately right there. We never have. And so people just automatically just, it's like, well, it don't matter if I do or I
My
don't, but it
make-
really does.
I think that's the biggest thing. You have one vote in amongst thousands,
Mhm.
millions in some cases, and it feels like that vote makes no difference. Whereas it's all the little
Yeah.
votes that make a difference. So if
It
you
is.
want to make a difference, vote, because
You do.
it does. It does make a difference. And
We
if you
have
want to
a
try and make sure that the asshole that you don't like doesn't get in, don't vote for them.
Right,
Make sure that you
exactly.
vote for somebody else.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
I had to make one rule in my house. We're all like free speakers, say whatever you want. Everybody has an opinion. They're all different. Okay. I am the only atheist in my whole family, and it's a huge family. But we had to make one rule in our house. If you don't vote, you don't talk politics. If you didn't get out, you didn't vote, you got no voice. That means don't come in my house and talk about it. I don't care if you don't like the candidate. I don't care what they did. I don't care what your opinion on it. If you're not actively in the process, out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to talk to you about it. And I had to make that hard line because they would just sit around and moan and groan about how things are. And I'm like, what did you vote? Did you vote for X? Did you find a candidate? They're like, no, why would I bother? I'm like, you'll sit here and do this hot air for 2 hours at me, but you won't go down there for 5 minutes and make your opinion known. This is why we have this problem.
Well,
Is
the
why
other
we
part of
have
the
it.
process that people don't take seriously is the primaries.
Mhm.
And people will
Mhm.
bitch up and down that they don't like the candidate their party presented.
I
But
voted
they
for
don't get
everything.
involved in the primaries, which is where we're choosing what candidate the party's going to present.
Mhm.
At
I
least we
voted
don't
for
have that
everything.
problem.
Even locally, like when they do like the school boards and stuff like that, we have elections on everything, county wise, and then state
You
wise,
guys
everything. I
have
vote
so
on
many
everything.
elections. You must get election fatigue as well.
Yeah.
I think I vote
Yeah.
about 8 or 9 times a year. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
see,
think it really is a
we don't have
problem.
that.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think it really is a
Ye-
problem that they have too many separate elections, and they should try to, combine them and do everything together. So at
Mhm.
least
Yeah,
it's
because
not more than one a
otherwise
year.
election fatigue is a thing, and that will also discourage people from voting. It's like, if I've got to
Mhm.
go and queue up to vote 8 times a year, and it's not a choice, and it's a choice, I don't have to do it, I'm definitely not going to go to some of them.
Yeah.
It
Just want to
is
break
how
in
most
real
people
quick
think.
and mention that Niddy is having some internet issues, and so that's why Niddy just suddenly popped out. He's not mad. There's no issues, and we
Okay.
didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to say goodbye.
We can
Bye,
say
Niddy.
bye,
Bye,
Niddy.
Niddy.
It was nice
And
to
there
be
is-
here with you.
There is a link to Niddy's channel in the description, so if you are not subscribed to Niddy, please go subscribe to Niddy.
I kept seeing his kids in the background, so I had assumed it was a parent thing.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there was a note in the private chat that it was an internet
Yeah, I
thing.
just saw that now.
Mhm.
I didn't
Yeah.
look at that
Yeah.
before.
I don't have the private chat up, so
Ring. We did change the voting age back in Vietnam when all our
Yeah.
18 and 19-year-olds were dying,
Mhm.
but weren't
Yes.
allowed to vote.
Mhm.
Right.
They made a change where they brought the legal age of adulthood back from 21 to 18.
Mm-hmm. You can
Now
vote.
there's people who
Mhm.
want it to be 16, and I personally don't agree with that at all. But there are people who believe that they should do that.
Mhm.
I think that comes down from the more responsibility that you're giving these people, the more their rights they should have. Right, they should have to have some say in what happens, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But then we come back to that impulse control and responsibility and maturity that you don't necessarily have as a 16-year-old. I mean, a lot of 16-year-olds do, but not all of them. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't have in Australia, I wouldn't have an objection if they lowered our voting age down to 16, but made voting from 16 to 18 non-compulsory. So 16-year-olds didn't have to vote. In fact, I don't think voting should be compulsory for anyone up until they're 21 in Australia. I think anyone under that age is probably doesn't care enough, know enough about what
Mhm.
they're doing to actually vote anyway. I mean, I know that my youngest daughter has donkey voted all the way up until she was 25 because she didn't care. And
Oh,
she'd show
yeah.
up and get her name crossed off and just put a blank form in the voting thing
Mhm.
because she didn't want to vote.
Mm.
And that's fair. You can do that, but why not just make it not compulsory for those people so that they don't have to if they don't want to, and anybody above that
Mhm.
should have to vote for. I'm a big proponent of compulsory voting. I think, especially at your top level of government, when you're talking federal government and things like that, or even state
Mhm.
governments, having people telling people you need to get out and vote,
Mhm.
and that gets rid of all those problems of voter suppression that you have as well. If people have to vote, governments can't voter suppress people because those
There's a
people have to vote.
there's a saying in politics that all politics are local, and what that
Mm.
refers to is that people, everybody focuses on stuff like, oh, who's your senator? Oh, who's the president? President. I don't give a fuck who the president is in a lot of ways. However,
Mhm.
nobody is going out and voting for their school board members. And now we have a situation in this country where a very large number of school boards in this country are being run by fascists from Moms for Liberty who have taken over the elections by getting themselves nominated and voted in because they knew damn well that nobody votes in school board elections.
Yeah.
And they have a little saying that goes something like, "He who controls the children controls tomorrow," and it was
Mhm.
Yeah.
quoted that from Adolf Hitler. And these people own our school boards, and it's going to be very, very difficult to make a difference in that if nobody's going to vote for the bottom end
Well,
election.
they control the education and
You run a country or take over a country by getting at the lowest offices there are, and that's school board.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
and
and
another
you
very
move
direct
up.
example.
Okay,
And
I need to end us here because, as I
Oh,
mentioned, I'm going on to your
Mhm.
friendly neighborhood
Oh,
atheist channel
okay.
in just a few
Yes.
minutes, and so we need to call this to a close. So everyone here, please, as soon as this broadcast ends, move over to your friendly neighborhood atheist, and
Mhm.
I will be on there in about 5 minutes. Actually, well, 5
Mhm.
minutes after we end here, and that is a fundraiser for the Secular Student Alliance. And
Okay.
so we're trying to raise some money for scholarships for secular students. And so thank you everyone who came today. It has been a wonderful discussion. I had no idea which direction we would end up going in, and we ended up having a really good discussion. So thank you all of
Yeah.
you. And thank you for helping me get to the 5,000 subscriber mark. It has been a wonderful journey, and I plan to keep it up. Next week, the guest will be Wes Sturdivant, and we will be talking about morals and morality. And religion. And next week's video, I'm working on a scripted video with clips from movies about slavery and the post-Civil War Reconstruction era, with Ron DeSantis's comments and the new Florida guidelines for how they're supposed to teach slavery, and then with Kamala Harris's remarks. That is a really difficult video to do. Just watching the clips that I'm trying to gather is so depressing that I don't know if I will finish that one tomorrow, if I may push that one off a week and do something else. I'm kind of working on two things at the same time, and I'm not sure which one will come out first.
Nadia Chambers, if you do a search in YouTube for Friendly Neighborhood Atheist, you should be able to find it, but don't spell it with a U.
And also, the very first link in the description is to that show for your friendly neighborhood atheist. So just look in the description here, and there's a link to that one.
Right. And if searching, it's capital YFNA. It should come up right away on YouTube too.
Okay.
Yeah, DeSantis is a menace. Like,
He is.
Oh my gosh.
condolences, Gigi, for that one.
Mhm.
I may as well just put the link in the chat. So there you go.
Oh yeah, there
Okay.
you go. There you go.
Okay, so thank you everyone for your help with this show. Thank you everyone for in the chat for your comments. Thank you everyone who views this later for your views. And thank you everyone for getting me to 5,000 subscribers. And now everyone move over to your friendly neighborhood atheist to watch the fundraiser there.
All right. See you there. Thank you,
Bye.
Granny.
Bye
Bye, all.
bye.
Bye bye.
Don't get caught.
Bye.